Hey guys, thanks for coming back to my channel where you hear me review books that I've read. And then you go decide for yourself, because you're a smart adult individual, or if you're not an adult, you're a smart individual for watching my channel, and you decide, do you hear the race cars? Can you hear them outside? So what did I read? Well, I read Grave Peril, Book 3 in the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. If you don't know what the Dresden Files are, I kind of don't know what you've been doing with yourself, because there are a billion of them. Well, there's like at least 10. But anyway, the Dresden Files have been around for a long time, and Harry Dresden is a wizard who lives in Chicago, and he fights all kinds of supernatural creatures, be them vampires, werewolves, fae, you name it, basically any kind of fantasy creature in an urban setting. That's what these books are. I'm going to put a link in the description of a really nice synopsis of the whole universe that Daniel Green did on his channel. And it'll kind of give you some insight on whether or not you would like reading the Dresden Files or not. But why did I decide to read this? Well, a while back, one of my friends, shout out to you, Justin, you know who you are, was really into these books, and still is. And he said, hey Rachel, I think you would really like these. It's got everything that you enjoy. Urban fantasy, gritty magic, kind of horror-ish, vampires. I like vampires. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. But at the time when he recommended them, I was super busy. So I started to listen to them on audiobook. And I listened to the first two, really liked them. And they're from the first person perspective. So that makes them very enjoyable to read an audiobook. It kind of feels like someone is telling you their own story rather than someone talking at you about the story of others for hours on end. James Marsters is the actor who narrates them. And if you are a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel, you will remember that James Marsters played Spike. So really good character actor who I think is underrated, and I would like to see in more roles. So why did I actually read the physical book if I was enjoying the audiobook so much? Well, two reasons. I wanted to get a sense for what Jim Butcher's prose were like, how he wrote dialogue and how he wrote action. It's really hard to pick up on those things when you're just listening, because you can tend to phase in and out and maybe tune things down a little bit. And to really critically listen takes as much effort, in my opinion, as it does to critically read. So I wanted to get a sense of his writing. And also, at the time, I was moving to Chicago. And I think I already mentioned this, but the Dresden Files takes place in modern day Chicago. Well, like modern within the past 20 years. I think the first Dresden Files book came out in the early 2000s. So not exactly like this year's Chicago, but Chicago within this century. And I don't know, I was just kind of like excited about the move and wanted to, just kind of get to be a part of the city, even though that seems kind of dumb. Like, there were only a few books we had on the shelf that were about Chicago or took place in Chicago. And honestly, this was the most accessible to me. This is the only one I wanted to read that I had on the shelf. Did I like it? Well, I mean, I could definitely put it down. Like, let's put it that way. I did not hate this book, but it was super easy for me to put down. And once I put it down, it was kind of like a chore to pick it back up again. I don't think that that's because the writing was bad. I don't really even think that's because the story was bad. I think it's because it didn't feel like a complete story. From beginning to end, this book feels very interstitial. And it seemed like, Jim Butcher was just kind of filling space with this book. It didn't feel like this was a standalone story. It kind of, as I was reading it, made me think of like a mid-season story arc that kind of bridges you from the beginning first few episodes of the show to like the finale where they go after the big bad. And since I haven't read past this, I don't know if that assessment is true, but I get the feeling that there's more coming that's better than this. That's sort of supported by some things that I've read online and some other discussions about the books that I've heard, that these books and the Dresden Files definitely get better as they go on. They improve over time. And I think that this is probably like, of all of the books in the series, like this is probably a weaker one. I'm guessing. Like I said, I've not read past book 3. But, there was nothing wrong with the writing. There was nothing difficult about reading it. It was just like, I just didn't find myself wanting to go back to it. Like, honestly, if on any given day, if I had the choice between picking up Grave Peril and going for a 5-mile run, I'd probably go for the 5-mile run. Not because, this was harder than running 5 miles. It's I was more interested in running 5 miles than reading this book. So I guess that does kind of put it down on like a I didn't like it realm. But it wasn't bad. It's still fun. There's like action and horror and snarky comebacks and stuff. That's good. Everybody likes that, right? Anyway, would I recommend it? I don't know that I would recommend this, but I think I would still go ahead and recommend the Dresden Files, because what I know of the universe so far from what I've read and from what other people have told me, who I trust, I know that there are good things in store here. But I think what I'm gonna do, instead of reading book 4, I'm gonna go back to audiobook and have it be something that I passively consume while I clean the house or do pull-ups. So the Dresden Files, you should check them out. Grave Peril, should you read it? If you want to. I kind of wish I just listened to it on audiobook. One woman's opinion. Take it or leave it. But anyway, thank you so much for coming back to my channel to hear me blabber on about a book that you're probably not gonna read, but I wanted to tell you about it because I read it and it wasn't terrible. So Jim Butcher, Grave Peril, check it out. And if you don't check this one out, until I see you next time, go read a book.